Welcome back to Respect the Process. I am Kelly Hunter, and I am joined, as always, by the voice of Crimson Tide Athletics, Chris Stewart, and we're going to get right into it.
Okay.
AP poll just out today.
Mm-hmm. Hadn't seen it.
Okay.
You're sharing it with me.
If you had to guess, Auburn is number one.
Mm-hmm.
Where would you put after the loss, 94-85 to Auburn at home?
Yeah. Here's what I'm going to guess, because I thought about this earlier today. I wondered, and my thinking was this. All right, if Auburn did not fall after losing at home to a really good Florida team.
Right, yeah.
Should Alabama fall at all if they lost to top-ranked Auburn?
Right.
My guess is they would, only because Florida is there. I was ready to say Tennessee would fall because they had lost to Vandy, but then they came back and won it.
Yeah.
I'm going to guess Alabama's at number 3, Florida's 2, Auburn is number 1.
Auburn is number 1. Florida, number 2.
Mm-hmm. Tennessee, number 3.
Duke, number 3.
Mm-hmm.
Alabama, number 4.
Okay. I'm okay with that.
That's livable. Still 5 SEC teams in the top 10.
Where's Tennessee?
Where is Tennessee?
I messed you up. I should not have thrown you the curveball.
Okay, Tennessee is number 6.
Thank you very much.
From the director of video operations, Scott Forrester.
Thank you, Scott. And apparently research as well. Thank you, Scott.
He's back in R&D as well.
Since I do none and you do all the work on this.
Okay, so falling to number 4, as you just gave the argument of why Auburn stayed number 1 after losing at home to Florida.
Right.
I mean, is it different criteria than for Alabama? Or,
no, I think I honestly have no problem with Florida being there because Florida has beaten Auburn at Auburn recently. This is not 2 months ago. This is a week and a half ago.
Yeah.
They did that. Again, it's the beauty of the rankings. Mm-hmm. Are they meaningful? Yes. It was historic that you had Alabama and Auburn meeting in the positions they were in.
I was going to say, if I had to guess one word that was used most on this weekend on any broadcast, historic.
Yeah, and it was worthy of that. First time 2 SEC teams have ever been ranked that high.
In the same state.
If anybody, and again, Auburn clearly, they showed it. Auburn's the best team in the country right now.
Yes.
So I've got no problem. I don't feel like you're getting snubbed, but it's just kind of the hypocrisy of ESPN. They claim to be a media outlet. That's fine. If they were not involved, in the AP poll,
would Auburn have stayed number 1 then? Too?
No. I'm not saying it would have.
Because I know where you're going.
My thing would have been if they were out of the poll business. Mm-hmm. They would have billed that game as 1 versus 1.
Yeah.
Because that's the better billing.
Right.
If you're just doing a marketing deal, it's 1 versus 1. And, of course, there was no argument on my point that Auburn deserved to be number 1.
Yeah.
But if you're going to have 2 legitimate recognized polls, again, ESPN's going with their own brand rather than helping their own promotion by calling it 1 versus 1.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean squat. It's the beauty of the rankings. They have meaning, but they don't impact who the national champion's going to be in any way, shape, form, or fashion.
No, and coaches, I don't think any coach really wants their team to be number 1 in terms of motivating them, because coaches love to be the underdog, and
except for Bruce, and Bruce handled it great, he always does. He used it. He used both polls. He goes, they're 1 in one poll, we're in 1 in the other. Who's right? We're going to find out.
Yeah.
Which I thought was great. I think Nate liked being number 2 in the coaches, in the AP. Because it got to, in theory, it was motivation earlier in the week.
Right.
Again, it doesn't mean squat, but it's how you use that.
Yeah.
So I thought Auburn showed they are the best team, and I don't think many doubted it going in. I thought Alabama could and would win. It was at home. They've been playing well.
It was going to take their best game.
You know what? It was going to take a better shooting game. I'm not even sure it was going to take their best. But I think because you go back and look, and I've heard some people say that don't have a clue. They watch a game or two, and, you know, it's a poor, weak, ignorant narrative. Well, you live by the three, you die by the three. Bama doesn't live by the three. They're one of the best in the country at shooting the three, have been, and they may utilize it more than others. Alabama didn't lose the game because they only made 5 of 26 three-point shots.
But Mark was 2 of 11.
They lost the game because they missed so many twos at the rim.
And we're going to get to that too. But I will say one thing. When you're looking at what it was going to take for Alabama, Mark Sears was effectively taken out of the game.
They did a very good job against him.
They did a great job of pretty much shutting him down so that he was not the force, the catalyst for that team. Alabama didn't shut anyone from Auburn down.
You're right. Look, when Auburn made 3 threes to start the game, or was it 2 threes and an and one? I can't remember, but it's 9-0.
Yeah.
They had 3 3-point possessions before Alabama got on the board.
Yeah.
That was not a good sign because you had guys who were not.
Because Johni Broome
makes 2 threes out of the gate.
He was responsible for you're like, oh well, okay.
He made 2 threes in the first 4 minutes, and you had to come out and guard him.
And Denver Jones, with the way that he played Mark Sears.
No question.
So, and I guess, you know, what I'm trying to say is that was one of the differences, is that Auburn was able to effectively shut down one of Alabama's key players. Alabama, on their defensive end, did not effectively eliminate any of Auburn's real weapons. When you look at, they had 6 players in double digits in scoring for, I'm talking about Auburn, had 6 players in double digits.
Right.
You know, they had 42 bench points. You know, that was my point in the difference in the game.
Yeah, Bama had 5 guys scoring double figures. Didn't know 4. I apologize.
4 guys in double figures.
3 that had 8 or more, but still.
We're gonna throw Mo in there too.
Auburn was more balanced. They blocked 6 shots. Bama blocked 3.
But
they affected so many more.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. They were in the heads of Alabama players to where they missed a ton of layups.
I don't think I've seen a game where, because even Coach Oats said at the rim, that was where so much of this game was lost, was at the rim. I was sitting there watching this. I said, I don't remember a game where I've seen so many missed layups, dunks, rebounds, things that you normally would consider to be bunnies, as my dad called them, or, you know, where you make the money.
Right. They made more threes than usual. Bama made far less, but it was at the rim. Again, there's 6 blocks, but the number of misses that Alabama had around the bucket. If you told me coming in, Bama only turns the ball over 7 times, I would have really liked our chances. But they only forced 4 by Auburn. I mean, that's an incredibly well-played game in that regard. 2 good defensive teams that still scored 94 and 85 respectively. But they didn't just give it away. Bama gave away points, though, because of what they didn't do at the rim.
Well, and also one thing that Coach Oats alluded to after the game was the lack of ball movement and the number of assists.
Yeah.
That Alabama had 8 assists.
There was a lot of dribble. There was a lot of one-on-one stuff.
But I want to ask, because so after the game, you have an opportunity to talk to Coach Oats, and really you're the first person who talks to him after the game. If they win, the ESPN reporter comes over, asks 2 questions, and then they go on to the key player. But
I get him in the locker room before he ever talks to the team.
It's a different environment. You have a relationship with Coach Oats. And what was his mood like after that game? Was it any different than any other game?
Well, first of all, it's only the fourth loss of the year and the first in, 3 weeks for them since the loss to Ole Miss.
It was the first time I think that they had gone to halftime not leading this game, leading a game.
They lost to Ole Miss, but they played terrible. And that's not a shot at Ole Miss. They really were good that day. But Alabama was lowest scoring game. They turned it over 21 times. There was a bunch to be mad at where Alabama was concerned. Not that there aren't things to fix if you're Alabama from this game against Auburn, but you played terrible against Ole Miss. You didn't play awful against Auburn. You just missed too many shots.
Yeah.
And you also didn't get enough stops against them. But to their credit, they go 12 of 30. That's much higher than they normally shoot from three. And Alabama at only 19%, from three. If they shoot 25% from three, they probably win that ball game. Or if you shoot 45% overall from the field, they go 27 of 30 total from the field, and that means what? 19 misses. I'm doing math on the fly, which is really a bad move. No, 21 misses from three. But on 2-point baskets, they shot, I think, around 40%, something in that neighborhood.
If you look at first half versus second half, in the second half, both teams scored 52 points.
Okay.
So that's even Steven, obviously. So that tells me that in the second half, and we know the most pivotal point of this game. But I want to get back to Coach Oats after the game when you had an opportunity.
Yeah, he was disappointed.
Yeah,
but he and I had talked about this before the game. His toughest assignment was not necessarily getting his team ready for Auburn. I think they were. Auburn beat them. Bama didn't do things, yes, but Auburn came out and played great, which changed it. I think it affected Alabama.
Yeah, I agree.
In the game.
Yep.
But Auburn won the game, but it was no issue. It's the biggest game without there being the opportunity to cut down nets. Mm-hmm. It was the biggest matchup in the regular season before those. The most publicized.
Biggest game in the state, biggest game in the conference, biggest game in college basketball.
And all season long, because there hadn't been 1 versus 2 all year. So certainly at this stage, it was incredibly important, very meaningful. But you're going to get them again. If you take care of your own business, and this is what Coach talked about. I mean, Nate said, look, we got work to do. But if we can win out, we're going to get them again in 3 weeks with the same thing on the line. We don't control the outright destiny of winning the league, but you can still win the league.
Well, he said all of our goals are still in sight. Everything is still laid out that they can still attain if they take care of things on their end.
The toughest assignment, though, that I think the man had within a 1-week period was what comes next.
Yeah.
Because it's easy to get up for Auburn.
Yeah.
It's all that hype we talked about. But you go to Missouri, which they're ranked. They're really, really good.
Yeah.
But it's been a tough place to play, and the motivation won't be the same. There's no rivalry with Missouri, even though they've beaten us 2 out of the 3 times that he's been there at Alabama and has gone to Mizzou. They've had the upper hand, even when they were terrible, and Alabama won the league the first time under Coach Oats. Mizzou found a way to get it done. So this is not an easy it's not a given you're going to get this win. That being said, they've got to find a way to get themselves back locked in and play the way you did against Arkansas and against Texas, certainly on the offensive end. And I'm not just talking about making threes, because that's not the only issue, but movement of the basketball, defending so that you get opportunities in transition and get more takeaways. Because while Auburn turned it over 4 times, Alabama, good grief, that's 3 of the 4 turnovers came off of steals. Auburn only had 1 steal, but the Tide turned it over 7 times, which means you kicked it away yourself.
Okay, damn it, Chris. Answer my question. What was his mood like after the game? This is exhausting.
Disappointed, but not despondent.
Okay. He didn't come in and kick a chair or anything?
No. I mean, he's not a happy guy.
I know.
Not a happy guy by any stretch, but
I mean,
he was fine. Was there a dramatic difference? No.
Yeah, that's what I didn't think. That's what I was.
Are you telling me I never answered your question?
Well, I was just wondering because obviously they have had other disappointing losses this season. This one, I'm not saying he was prepared to lose this game.
It was the least surprising loss of the 3 they've had.
Yeah, I guess.
Or second most.
Okay.
Because you go to Purdue early, you don't know who you are yet as a team fully. And again, I wasn't there, but I'm told that was the loudest environment anybody that was on that trip had ever experienced.
Okay. Well, and one thing, because we've said time and time again, this is a mature team. This is a team that is stacked with upperclassmen. Mm-hmm. By upperclassmen, I mean guys that have graduated.
Talking about Auburn?
No, I'm talking about Alabama.
Okay. Auburn had more of those. I thought that's who you're talking about.
But no.
Bama has a bunch.
Okay. This is respect the process.
I'm respecting it.
This is Alabama. Voice of Crimson
Are you
Tide
sure we haven't been married before? The way we're not communicating well right now?
Okay. But I guess what I'm getting at, the most pivotal point in the game was when there was 8:50 to play in the second half.
Right.
Chad Baker-Mazara hits his second free throw that gives Auburn the 65-60 lead. Alabama's next possession, Mark Sears comes, and is that the 3 that he drained from pretty much the parking lot?
He did have one of them that he made was deep.
That was
long.
It was.
It wasn't atypical for him, but yeah, it was a long one.
It brought it to 65-63, and then for the next 40 seconds, that's when Broom misses a layup, and then Diabate misses a layup, and then finally Grant Nelson comes in and hits the slam, which he had missed before.
Yeah,
but he slams
tied it at 68.
Tied at 65. That's when we tied it at 65, and the crowd goes nuts.
Right, and it was tied at 68
and
too,
then,
wasn't it?
Yep, and then 7:31. That's when Thad Pettifor he nails the 3. No? Did I get a typo there? I think I did. Pettifor nails the 3, puts it up 68-65, and then we tie the game again at 68, and then that was all that was. That was it. Yeah,
it wasn't as much fun after that.
But
that's Auburn. Look, I know it's the Bama show.
I mean, when Chad Baker-Mazara hit that
Auburn
3,
is.
At that point, after we had tied at 68, it's like, I don't know that we have it in us. But
we never led. That was the thing. You felt like if you could get the lead, not that Auburn was going to fold, but you put pressure on them that they never had to experience on the day. When you never trail, it's just different.
Oh, without question.
And it's, and if you could have gotten them down and let the crowd, the crowd went nuts when it was first tied.
When you fought back to 65.
When I'm able to say on the broadcast after we've trailed for a long time, I've got it, never anything that's planned, but it started and then it comes back. We'll make one and you go, let's start over. Yeah. Pretty emphatically. We start over and then we were behind again really quick. Mm-hmm. You just never got ahead. You never got it fully your way.
Because that was when we tied it at 65. Then Tahad Pettifor comes down, nails the 3. Mm-hmm. Tigers go up 68-65. Youngblood comes down the court then. He drains a 3. Mm-hmm. And Youngblood had a great game.
Yeah.
He had a great game. But it was after that, with just under 7 minutes to play, that Chad Baker-Mazara hit a 3. And it was just like, I don't know that we've got it anymore. That was almost the dagger to the heart.
It was done. It wasn't done, but it was done.
It was done. And it's one of those where, you always say the final score was 94-85, but that kind of belies the truth of it was never that close. Especially the last 5 minutes of the game, you never felt like it was going to get to a point where, okay, if we hit 2 threes, we're right back in this.
Right. The problem is Auburn was not going, Bruce does such a good of getting guys to rein it in.
And even with 2 guys that fouled out, they were still coming at you.
You just know when you're down 8 with 2.5 to go, if you're playing a less skilled, less disciplined team, you may get the opportunity to get some buckets quick and make it dicey down the stretch. Auburn wasn't going to let that happen. They were going to run the clock. They were going to bleed the clock as best they could, and then I think they may have gotten a second chance opportunity somewhere in there. Again, they're just good. They're tough. They're long. They're deep. I don't
think any Alabama fan can walk away from this going, I can't believe we lost this game.
No, not anybody that knows what they're looking at.
No, and I think that's part of why. Obviously, if you're Alabama, you never want to lose to Auburn, be it in cards, bowling, anything. But does this barb have a different sting, or does it not have as much sting as when Alabama has lost to Auburn in the past? Because of the fact that Auburn is the number one team in the nation, there is no denying that. And they played like that in their number one rival's house on Saturday.
There were some matchups 10, 11, 12 years ago where if you lost, you felt like, dear Lord, how bad are we? Because they were bad.
Yeah.
And we weren't great. But there was one, we talked about this. I actually...
Did you get in a fight in the parking lot?
No, okay. I didn't get in the fight in the parking lot or anywhere else. I will leave the conversation to myself, but I did share with Nate Oats the picture of the score on, I believe, February 6th of 2013 at Auburn, a Wednesday night game, when Alabama lost 49-37. 49-37 was the final score.
Did you have to call that game?
I called that game. I'll never forget walking past my counterpart at Auburn, who was the late Rod Bramlett, and there are no I looked at Rod, patted him on the back. He was still on the air, but he was in a commercial break, so he had the headset on. I looked at him and I went, "Congratulations," with a question mark, and he said, "It was a pillow fight, and you caught us with a zipper." And it was terrible. It was awful basketball. They had no joy really in winning. We were uglier than they were, but it was a terrible, horrific ball game. And there were a couple others. There was a year, I think it was, I can't remember if it was Coach Grant's third or fifth year, but there was a year where we were far better. We had a team that should have done some damage that year. Jamichael Green, who's good to see him at the game Saturday. Tony Mitchell, Trevor Elliford, he was at the game Saturday too. Those three, I think Chris Hines was on that team, who was a great glue guy. I'm trying to remember who the other... We had a really good team. Okay. It wasn't just a decent roster. It was a very good team and should have been better than they were. But we had to win it on a final 2 seconds tip in, put back, or short shot from Jamichael to beat another bad Auburn team. And that was a dramatic finish, but it wasn't a great game. I say all the stuff I've said to say that you can stomach losing to a great club.
Yeah.
You're never happy about it, especially when you know you've got a team that is capable of beating the opponent. But Auburn played well.
Yes.
I know Bruce has got probably a million things he would break down, just like Nate is with his. But they did it in a 9-point road win against the number 2 team in America. And their biggest rival. So they left there happy, and they should. It was a heck of an effort. Yep. Managed all of the noise, literally and figuratively, around them.
And handled things like a number 1 team in the nation should. They went on the road. They took care of business.
And like a mature, disciplined team should, after they lost a home game to Florida, and then had to win an impressive road game at Vanderbilt, traditionally a tough place to play, but totally different when you're coming to Tuscaloosa.
And Coach Pearl said he thought it was a clean game. Do you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't see any garbage. I didn't see any garbage between them. So it's not just the ability to hang on the ball. Auburn, I missed this one. Auburn makes 8 of their last 10 from the field. Yeah. They didn't give Alabama a chance. No. They were so good. They were very, very efficient. And I say, again, you can be upset, disappointed, and you should be from the Alabama side. But there also comes a point where even if it's a team you don't want to give credit to, you got to give credit to because they took care of business. Again, they only turned it over 4 times in the game and make 8 of their last 10 down the stretch. And what do they do from the free throw line? 22 of 32. That wasn't their best effort. I think they missed 3 or 4 straight free throws that at least gave Alabama a ray of hope. But, we shoot 74%, which is right at the season average, but we missed 9. You missed 9 free throws, and you lost by 9. Yeah. Again, when you're talking about the next meeting that takes place, it wouldn't take you long to find where the lost points came from. 2 or 3 threes that literally were halfway down and popped out. How many 2s right at the rim? That were, I'm not picking on him. The one that just comes to mind. I don't know that
I've seen that many.
Jaron Stevenson, but again, part of it, not all, but part is to Auburn's credit because they had challenged so many shots that you start thinking of that. It rushes you and you make what's an easy shot more difficult because you're concerned about the presence of the defender.
And because of that also, they were taking some low percentage shots when they would get underneath the rim and would try and come and
the reverse.
Yes, and that was not working. But at this point, it's that goldfish mentality. It's going back to how baseball players, you put that one behind
goldfish mentality. Help me.
Well, because they don't hold on to stuff for very long.
Okay.
So
right. Because they die quickly. That's part of it.
You cycle through it and it's gone. And because of it's like baseball. Next game, fans hold on to it a lot longer than coaches and players.
Totally agree.
And so for them now, it's turning the page because they have 15th ranked Missouri coming up. Missouri has won some games that they should not have won necessarily. They lost some they shouldn't have lost, but
they're far better than they've been.
You go into Norm Stewart Court, and it's always a tough environment.
Yeah, so and especially now because they actually have fans there.
Yeah.
that are behind them. They were brought into the league for who and what they are and had been in basketball. And the television market, but also who they'd been in men's basketball.
Yeah.
And dang it, if they didn't go to the SEC championship game twice in a row, didn't they?
I think so.
Or 2 out of 4 years, something like that. On the football side of things, and you could argue they've been far more competitive in football than they were in basketball until now, and they're a viable team now.
Well, they've won their last 2 against Georgia and Oklahoma. And at this point, they're also playing for an opportunity to up their stock, not only in the SEC tournament, but also an opportunity to play in the NCAA tournament. And then Saturday, we have number 17 Kentucky coming to Tuscaloosa. You talk about a team at a crossroads. Since that loss to Arkansas, they're 2-2. They lost to Ole Miss in Oxford. Then they came home and lost to South Carolina in Lexington. Then they beat Florida in Lexington, and then they go and lose to Texas and Austin.
Alabama is facing a stretch here in league play in the regular season where they're probably, or possibly would be better, going to be favored in every game except the one at Auburn. Can win every game they're playing.
Yes.
But could play decent and lose every game they've got left. Well, they don't play a team in their remaining games that isn't either projected to be in the field or is right on the line. I think every one of them right now is projected to be in the tournament.
Well, we know they have one of the toughest last 6 schedules of anyone in the country. But I also think, and after the game, Coach Oates also alluded to this, of saying that he is not above shaking up the lineup again because he was not impressed with the way the team came out in the second half. And he said it was not an opportunity necessarily for him in that game for it to be a learning experience.
Right.
That game was winnable, and it was at that point too important to try and win the game. I think this is going to be an interesting stretch to see where the maturity, with all these upperclassmen that we talk about having, where the maturity, where the effort comes out, and how we see them play. I think these next two games are going to be interesting.
We always talk first four, last four of a half. Alabama was down. I can go less than that. Oh. First two and last one of the first half. You're down 9-0 out of the gate. Mm-hmm. And after you had pulled back to within one, I believe, you let them go on a 6-0 run to end the half. Mm-hmm. So that's a pretty big swing right there.
At the 3-minute mark, Alabama was down 35-33.
Okay.
And then at the half, it's 42-33.
Yeah. So.
And then you open the second half very similarly, and it's, next thing you know, they've jumped out to that 55-41. Mm-hmm. And you're like, I don't know that we're going to be able to get back in this thing.
Yeah.
Because you have two teams with Missouri and Kentucky, they're also fighting for position.
They are.
And
Kentucky owes you. I mean, you beat them. You beat them. You didn't blow them out by any stretch. I think you only won by 5, but it was. It was an impressive win.
Yeah, people did. As you said, Kentucky has probably been a bit inflated and overrated this season, and has, maybe done some things to have people believe more than they actually are.
Yeah, they won some bigger games early, and I think they looked.
But Alabama was one of the first teams to go into Lexington and beat them, and everybody's like.
I think they were the second one to catch them there, maybe. But they look more like Kentucky, just because of the way they're playing, as opposed to the style under John Calipari. It looks like Kentucky guys. Not all. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's not like Kentucky was always winning with guys that look like walk-ons, but Cal seemed to be. We want to get first-round draft picks. We're going to try to win a title with them, but if we don't, okay. Yeah. We got all these first-round draft picks, and we're going to be able to sign these classes. Kentucky cares about hanging banners. Mm-hmm. They don't care about NBA stuff. It's another thing to brag about, and they should, but they've also seen it happen where you can do both.
Yeah.
You can develop NBA guys, but before they leave, win SEC and NCAA titles. And they look more like that now, but they're also going to come in with the we owe you mentality.
Yeah.
And like you said, trying to improve their position. Didn't they lose another one over the weekend or come close?
No, they lost at Austin
That's right.
Texas.
They did lose to Texas, so they lost over the weekend. They can't afford.
No.
To drop.
So you leave for Columbia tomorrow?
Tuesday departure.
Tuesday.
Play the 8:00 game.
They love giving you that 8:00 time slot, don't
it's
they?
Prime time, late game, and
I know.
You don't mind them as much at home, but man, on the road they can stink.
I know, and especially because it's a further game. It's not Starkville.
Whenever you play though, all you want is a meaningful game.
Yeah.
And a win. But you want to be in meaningful games. And that's the cool thing. It's brutal if you're not playing well, but the cool thing is you're playing nothing but meaningful games the rest of the way.
Okay, so we've got Missouri on Wednesday night at 8:00. They're 15th ranked, of course. And then Saturday back home against 17th ranked Kentucky, 5:00 game. So that's a nice.
That'll be nice. Kentucky, 5:00, 6:00 East Coast.
I know.
We'll
have a late
lunch.
We'll
hopefully have another. Again, obviously we didn't get the result we wanted. It was phenomenal for the state, but it was also great for Alabama to have the spotlight, the focus, and I'm telling you, it was as loud. prior to tip-off is anything I've heard.
It's funny, before we started, I was talking to Taylor Korn, who does the basketball show with Jim, and she's an unabashed Auburn fan.
What's her school? It's supposed to be that way.
I said, was there an Auburn presence at this game? And she was like, well, there was like a small cluster kind of.
Yeah.
And I said, because, it's one thing when you have a win at your opponent's place and there's a lot of you and y'all can kind of celebrate together. And then there's the other where the opponent wins and you're like, okay, we're just going to get on out of here. I don't want to get hurt going to the parking lot. So,
exactly.
But she said there was a good presence. I mean, it was a hot ticket to get into that game.
Yeah.
So,
never been one like it.
Okay, so if you're looking for more of this handsome devil, you can always find him at chrisstewart.online. We got to thank Scott Forrester. I mean, he really is the lifeguard here for us.
And thankfully he allows tardy slips because we both were, and I'm sorry about that.
I blame my kids. They were home. They're not usually home because it's the holiday.
I blame me.
I don't blame you all. But thank you for keeping us above water, Scott. Always. It's getting harder and harder to do. Find all of your Alabama content at Crimson Cover, or Cover Crimson, not Crimson. Cover Crimson. And, of course, every single day with Lance, Ryan, and Jim at the next round. For Scott Forrester and for Chris Stewart, I'm Kelly Hunter. Chris, we need you to give them, a big one that's full of fortitude and reassurance.
Dadgummit, still roll tide.
See y'all next week. Take care.